An autoimmune disease is a condition in which your body's healthy cells are mistakenly attacked by your very own immune system. They range in severity from mild to disabling, and sadly, there is no cure for autoimmune diseases. The only thing we can do is manage them. We live out loud with Fiona Waithera, a lady who has spent 12 of her 24 years of life living with not one, but several autoimmune conditions. Hello and welcome to Sheila Lives Out Loud. My name is Sheila Mwanyega and I'm glad that you're on this channel. Click subscribe, tafadhali, and hit notifications. And should you see something on this channel that means something to you and you know it can teach something to somebody else, please share. We're good like that. Find a good thing, pass it on. And it's all about autoimmunity exposed in this conversation. We catch up with Fiona Waithera, 24 years old, and half of your life has been spent battling with an autoimmune condition. So tell us a little bit about you before we dig into the meat and bones of the story.
I was a tomboy. I used to climb doors.
Not trees.
Doors. I used to climb doors.
How? Okay, this friendship is on thin ice already.
I would ride the bike. I was a typical tomboy. I don't know where the girl thing came in, but it came in later.
But when it did, it showed up.
It showed up. I broke my teeth swinging with a gate. My mom beat me up seriously for that.
I can understand why.
But after that, I think my life, events just brought me to a position where I couldn't do as much as I wanted to do because I was in and out of hospital and no one knew what was the problem.
Right.
Up until around age 12, I remember we were walking home from church and I just got some widespread numbness on my left. But my mom had to carry me on her back because I couldn't walk. And my mom thought maybe it's just one of these episodes, it will come, it will go. I remember I spent the night in their bedroom and she kept checking on me during the night just to see if I have some form of sensation. By morning, sensation was still not there. So we went to hospital the following day. They ran a series of tests and the doctor said, "We think your child has a heart condition." And like most parents, it's like, no. This girl was fine yesterday.
Yeah, she was swinging in the gate.
Yeah, she can't have a heart condition. I want a second doctor's opinion.
Yeah.
So we sought a second doctor's opinion and they still maintained the diagnosis and I was sent to a pediatric cardiologist. Unfortunately, that was on my birth date. My 12th birthday was spent in a hospital getting
all kinds of tests done.
And eventually I went home with diagnosis of rheumatic heart disease. My mitral valves were not closing properly. So they put me on penicillin injections that I was supposed to get monthly up to age 21. And I was 12. That felt like eons. And I think at that point in time is when I realized that even in a child's mind, they realize how life can be fickle. Because once I learned that I had a heart condition, so many things in my life changed. And as petty as they were, my first question was, am I going to get married? I had already planned out my wedding. They told me, I'm going to die because of a heart disease, so I won't get kids, I won't get to do all these things. So it was, my mom tried to take me through it, but I think I was still too young to understand what was going on.
Yeah, but there were just those big markers about the life you expected to live
and
that suddenly
changed.
were in question. Yeah.
Everything changed. PE in school, the teacher would tell me to sit at the corner, don't run too much because of your heart rate and everything. So the bullying in school started. Fiona is treated in a special kind of way. Fiona doesn't fit in. I think I had a thick skin. I always thought I had a thick skin, but when it became so an everyday thing,
eventually it wears you down. Yeah.
And less than a year later, I started having pains in my joints. They would swell up, my back would get red, and I'm dark. So you can imagine when I look red,
really something is happening here.
It's purple.
Oh.
So my mom thought maybe we should get you checked again. This time, maybe a month before my birthday again, or in 2006 now, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. But because I was under 18, they call it juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, which I was supposed to outgrow by the time I was 18. I started skipping school more often. I would say class 7 through to class 8 cumulatively, I didn't go to school for more than 90 days.
Whoa.
So I basically homeschooled myself. Unfortunately, the drugs that I was taking, once you take they call them NSAIDs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, they can cause some sort of ulcers in your tummy. We were oblivious to that. We didn't know. I told my mom I was in pain. She would give me Mobec, ibuprofen, something. But anytime I take that, the pain would skyrocket.
Would even be worse.
So she's like, no, this is not working. We need to see a doctor. The results were back. They told me I had peptic ulcers, and they put me on omeprazole, which I did for 6-7 months. So the financial strain started. But I got used to it. With time, you learn. I got to learn the triggers. I would know that if I feel this way, it means I'm about to flare. Flare is when the disease activity is
up and running.
So I would calm down. I've always been a girl who wants to do things for herself. By the time I was 9, I was cleaning my room. I was cleaning my mother's room. But then that had to come to an end because touching cold water would make my fingers just go all over. It's too much. So it meant cutting down on activity and listening to my body. If it says rest, irrespective of where I am, it means rest. If I push it, I will pay for it.
Yeah.
So I did my KCP, went into high school, and then I was kicked out. For discretion purposes, I won't say which school.
Okay.
But I was kicked out by my principal saying that I'm too much. They can't handle this. So I was taken to a day school. It was hard, but I made it through. But the last thread was in Form 4. I remember we were doing our daily literature. I read my part, but for some reason on that particular day, everything sounded so loud. So even when I was reading, the teacher kept telling me to speak up. But in my head,
You were yelling.
I was yelling.
You were practically screaming.
So the girl who was sitting next to me, behind me, had a deeper voice. So when she started reading, I could feel her voice down my throat. I don't know if that makes sense, but I could feel the voice down my throat, and I screamed. And so everybody in the class is in chaos, what's happening? And so the teacher is, Fiona, what's wrong? And I'm just keep quiet, I don't want you to talk. So my mom is called, she comes, we go to hospital. They check me out. They tell me we can't find an infection. We don't know what's wrong. But wind and noise were just making everything so painful. I was given 2 months off. So I didn't even get to sit my pre-milk. So I was just home with cotton wool in my ears, so that there's no wind, there's no noise, just try to muffle everything up. I resumed school in second term, but again, I started having headaches, one-sided headaches. They were so bad. I'd wake up with a headache, go to bed with a headache. I would do the maximum dose of Panadols. They would still do nothing. So the doctor said, maybe you're pushing yourself too much. Try doing half a day of school. Like, okay, I'm in Form 4.
You can't do half a day of school.
I can't afford half a day. But the body demanded half a day. So I started doing half a day, which meant, again, more bowling. Now, this girl, she's being dropped. She's carrying her special kind of food. The teachers don't punish her. She doesn't get to do duties. Now she's leaving school at noon. So the bullying became, or the harassing, for lack of a better word, became really a very big problem. I took one day at a time. I sat my KCAC, and I was glad I was admitted to the University of Nairobi to do economics and statistics. I remember going in, I told God, this is my last chance to having a normal life. No one can know that I have an autoimmune condition. So I never told anybody. I just kept quiet. Until one day, I was going to school. We live along Thika Road. So I took a matatu. I alighted at Odeon. But I was feeling very disoriented. And instead of making my way to University of Nairobi, I made my way to Afya Center.
The exact opposite.
The exact opposite. I had no idea where I was going. I was afraid of asking because I didn't know, I couldn't recognize people. Luckily, the last person I had called was my sister. So I called her and I told her, I don't know where I am. So she started giving me direction back to school. By the time I was getting to class, I was so exhausted. I didn't have time to sit in for the lecture. So I just signed in and went back home. But that was a point that shook me, like I am getting lost. I started hallucinating. So my mom told me, you need to see a doctor. At this point, I really wanted to take health into my hands now. I don't want it to be a mommy thing. I'm grown up, I'm 18, I can do this. So I was sent to a neurologist and they ran some tests and they told me I have complex partial seizures. The saddest bit in Kenya is that healthcare is expensive.
It is.
It doesn't help when you have a pre-existing condition.
And most health providers, the policy they have on pre-existing and chronic illnesses,
they're not going to take you.
No.
I have been rejected so many times by insurance companies. I spend around 30,000 on drugs a month. That is exclusive of doctor's consultations, blood work that is going to be ordered. So giving me 450 or 500,000 is not even going to see me through to June.
No, it's not. And that's the thing about autoimmune diseases and conditions. You just manage them. They have no cure. You've got to manage the symptoms.
You just manage. And Kenya as a society, and it saddens me, we don't even take the time to get to know how a person is doing emotionally.
Right.
If you're okay physically, good. We're good. Let's go on. So no one really took the time to understand the toll of rheumatoid arthritis on my life. At age 13, having no friends, being in bed, doing drugs, I got depressed. I had to see a psychiatrist. It was so bad.
And I think a lot of it is also largely informed by a lack of information. When you don't know something, when you're not aware of something, you don't even know where to begin. So it's much easier for me to, you're fine, okay, thanks, bye, and carry on. And whatever you're dealing with, itapita too.
But all that changed in 2015 when I was going for a wedding. And then right in the middle of service, I started getting some pain in the hip. Finally, my legs started feeling heavy. I couldn't lift it. We decided we needed to see a doctor. I was diagnosed with lupus.
Oh, wow.
That was a blow. I was in denial for around 3 weeks. I didn't know. I knew what lupus was, but I had found a way to separate Fiona and lupus. It's not Fiona with lupus. There's Fiona, and then there's lupus. I got 3 shades darker. My walking was not improving, so I started physical therapy. By the end of the year, the therapist told me I should get a cane. By January, I started using the walker. In April, I was put in a wheelchair. All this time, I am faithfully going for physical therapy 3 times a week.
So you're deteriorating.
I'm not making any progress. It's actually retrogressive. I go to the doctors and I tell him I don't know what's happening. Physical therapy is excruciating. It's painful. And especially because I'm now in a wheelchair, so even if they exercise my muscles and I'm back on the sit,
you're not getting the benefit of it.
I'm not getting the benefit.
Yeah.
So the doctor was frank enough to tell me, Fiona, I really don't know what's happening right now. So we did numerous tests, including a brain and spine MRI. At that point, I was getting up to 4 seizures in a day. I couldn't move. My mom had to turn me in bed, had to give me a shower, had to dress me. I couldn't wear shoes because for some reason my feet were always burning. I remember this one time a friend came to see me and he asked me a question that really, really annoyed me, but I later appreciated it. He asked me, Fiona, if this was to be your life, would you accept it or would you be bitter about it for the rest of your life? In my head, I was very insulted. you've come to see a sick person. Don't give me reality.
Yeah, don't tell me how we should begin to imagine that this is not going away.
But I think after some time of reasoning it out, I was like, you know what? Fine, maybe I can make something out of this. I learned how to knit in the process. So knitting had always been one thing I wanted to do. But again, in my grand scheme of life, I was supposed to do that when I'm 70 for my grandchildren, not at 23.
Not at 23. What 23-year-old knitting? But that's what you started doing.
I started doing, and I started making sales. I made sales of up to around 30 to 50,000.
Wow. Just knitting.
Yep. In my bed, when I wake up, the end was put specifically at a place where I could reach for it.
Right.
I remember when I was starting 2017, I told God, if I don't walk before January is over, you and me, we are so done.
Oy.
We are so done. I can't have put my faith in you for all this and then nothing. Best believe, Sheila, on the 29th of January, 2 days shy of the end of the month, I took my first 3 steps. They were wobbly. They were really wobbly.
But they were steps.
Not need, but they were steps.
Right.
I remember I cried so much. My face was hurting and stinging. I couldn't believe it. I felt like a giant because I was seated throughout. Now all of a sudden I can take a shower when I'm standing and I can see inside the sink.
Yeah.
It was like a whole new world had opened up. Now that I was back on my feet, I told my mom, I need a break. I've been here for too long. I've been in the house for too long. I want a break. So I traveled to the US for a break, for a graduation, to meet up with family. In the process, I sought medical care. They did tests that had never been done here before, and I was given yet another diagnosis
of yet another condition. What was it this time?
Myasthenia gravis.
Which is?
So myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune condition that specifically affects the nervous system. So now I had an explanation why I couldn't walk. And surprisingly, this is a diagnosis that was made within seconds.
We live with a lot of people in our lives, and they tell us truly what it is that they're going through, but we miss the signs. We miss it, and we keep missing the signs until it's far too late.
You see, if you had an infection, you go to hospital, the doctor knows what tests to run.
Right.
With an autoimmune condition, it's a criteria. You have to check, I think, 4 out of the 11. So if you have 3, then you're not an autoimmune patient. But maybe it's there, it's just that it hasn't gotten to
gotten to that stage where you now need to take it seriously in terms of it's expressing itself.
So by the time you're being given a diagnosis, at times it's far into. I was given myasthenia gravis diagnosis, and they started me on medication. So I started counting the diseases I have now. So there was the heart disease, there's the stomach, there's rheumatoid arthritis, there's lupus, Then I started developing some inflammation of the rib cage that's called costochondritis. It happens, you can't sleep. You sit in one position like this. You can't cough, you can't laugh, you can't sneeze. You sit still until it's gone.
Whoa.
Then I started drying. My mouth started drying, my eyes, that's called Sjogren's. So I have to do artificial tears. I have to take drugs to make my mouth moist. Then my fingers started discoloring. I wake up, my fingers are blue. That's called Raynaud's.
Wow.
That has to be treated as well.
All of these?
All of them. So in one night, in the PM, I do around 14 to 15 pills.
Every day?
Every day.
And it is the only way to make sure you can function the next day?
Yeah, the next day. And this is the thing. Fatigue is a big thing. So I wake up tired.
Of course, 14 pills. Hello. That's work overnight.
And I forgot to mention that I'm hypertensive as well.
So there are pills for that as well.
There's pills for that as well.
I mean, I'm sitting here with you and you've got such a beautiful disposition in terms of your spirit is happy. You don't look like someone who's on 14 pills per day. What makes you so happy? What keeps you going?
I think it comes with time, because have I been depressed? Yes. Then you realize that you only get to live once, and only I have the strength to decide whether to be happy or sad about it. With an autoimmune condition, I am going to live with it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So if I make myself miserable, or if I choose to capitalize on it, and I want to live up to 100, then I'm going to have a very long, miserable
And
life.
hard life, yeah.
With time, I am learning to explore different ways of healing. We are so used to conventional medicine that get sick, see doctor, pharmaceutical, the whole round. So I decided chiropractic care. These are things that people in the East used to do. They still do. You know, first
and
check your
acupuncture and all of that, yeah.
And like, I want to try this. Let me try. Then if it fails, I'll say I explored all my options. So in the process, that's when I realized there's so many people who don't know what autoimmune conditions are. And I'm not dealing with one, I'm dealing with
Several
of them. What can I do to make people's lives easier? So I started blogging about my journey, and I started Autoimmunity Exposed, which we are still under the process of registration. And the whole idea is to raise awareness, create support groups where people can just come share their stories as patients, as caregivers, as support systems, and also come up with partnerships with pharmaceuticals that they can give patients drugs at discounted fees. Maybe lobby for better insurance policies, policies that are going to accommodate us. Talk to employers, because I'm not productive
You're
from
not
8 to 5.
8 to 5, but
I can't.
productivity shouldn't be about how much time. It could be the quality of what you put into the work.
But we're living in a world where no one is willing. What is acceptable today in Kenya is cancer. If you don't have cancer, then you're not sick enough to get any kind of benefit, to get any kind of sympathy. But these are people who are also suffering in silence because no one is talking about it.
Exactly. And sometimes, especially just from describing some of the symptoms that you've had to experience over the years, people will just think it's a mental thing.
It's a mental.
For instance, you were going to campus and then you're at Afia House. Come on, guys. This sounds very mental. I mean, Kenyans are, and not just Kenyans, it's just a human thing to quickly decide which box this belongs in. And if it doesn't fit in that, then we have a problem on our hands. But I know you've received a lot of support from your mother, especially.
My mom is the closest to heaven that I have. I believe in God, but here on earth, she's my closest to heaven. She's been there through thick and thin. She's the one who used to come to turn me in bed, check on me, at times put her finger right under my nose just to make sure
you're still breathing.
if I'm still breathing. So my mom and my elder sister have been amazing. I would have to say that even with the pain and everything, I've had an amazing support system.
Right.
And I count myself lucky because I know of people who don't have that kind of support. And ever since I started the page, people have reached out to me telling me I feel this way and no one understands. People think I'm faking it. What do I do? I'm in pain. What should I take?
Yeah.
And that helping, just telling somebody that it's going to be okay, listen to your body, rest, it makes me feel like I am living. Because I have always wanted lupus to go. Then one day it hit me, it's not just about me. There are other people who look up to me for questions, for answers on how to survive, on how to deal, how should I deal with diet. So I think that is what is driving me right now, and learning how to live one day at a time.
Wow.
I wake up one day, my body tells me, Fiona, you need to sleep.
You sleep.
I sleep. I wake up and my body is energetic. I make the most out of the day.
You remind me of a wonderful friend of mine. I had a conversation with him, and he said, at the end of it all, whether we have, he's in remission from cancer, whether we have a condition, an autoimmune condition, whether we're in remission, whether we're perfectly healthy beings, we live moment by moment, day by day. Take the moment as it comes. I know you've got that Facebook page up and running, so we'd like to share it on our social media sites. Fiona, thank you so much for making the time to be here and for being so gracious with us today and sharing your journey with us. We are living out loud at the Westwood Hotel. Looking forward to catching up with you in the next episode. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this channel, hit notifications as well, and we'll catch up soon. No matter what you do, in everything that you do, live out loud. Bye for now.